Well, howdy friends, Brian Flechsig of Mad River Outfitters and the Midwest Fly Fishing Schools, and welcome back to another episode in our series on getting started in fly fishing. Today I want to talk about one of the most common misconceptions about fly fishing, is that it's just for trout. You know, we do a bunch of consumer shows and we get people that come up all the time and they see, oh, Mad River Outfitters, you guys fly fish, and they say, well, where do you trout fish around here? Well, we do have trout fishing here in Central Ohio, but we don't have trout streams on every street corner, so we've really had to adapt and learn to fish for other species. In fact, we have over 43 different species that we fish for here in the state of Ohio. But I think a lot of people just assume that fly fishing is just for trout, and basically, if it swims, it can be caught on a fly rod. Now, I'm not here telling you it's always the best way to catch that fish. I mean, for example, I'm not going to be halibut fishing 400 feet deep off the coast of Alaska with a fly rod. But you know, there's a lot of game fish out there that are right in your neck of the woods that can and will be caught on a fly rod if you give them a shot. So I just want to talk a little bit about some of the other fish that are available. And for you as a beginner, the number one thing that you need to do is you need to go out and you need to catch a bunch of bluegill, panfish, sunfish, bluegill. The best thing you can do is get a simple 1X leader of bluegill popper and go out and catch 50 to 100 bluegill on a fly rod. That's where you're really going to learn a lot about casting, fighting, playing a fish, and not to mention they're a ton of fun. I've got a ton of customers around here that are just bluegill anglers, and they're certainly happy doing it. But then you might branch into, smallmouth bass. Smallmouth bass are absolutely a blast on a fly rod. They will readily take a fly. The fly selection is relatively easy. You need bait fish, some poppers in the summer, and some crawfish patterns. And smallmouth fight harder, pound per pound, than just about anything out there. And then, of course, along the same veins, one of America's most popular game fish, the largemouth bass. There's largemouth, I believe, in 48 out of 50 states, something like that. And largemouth, of course, are a blast on a fly rod. In fact, before the onset of World War II, before spinning rods came about, fly fishing is how people caught largemouth bass. Now, back in about 2002, we released a DVD, which, by the way, we're going to be releasing here on our YouTube channel. It was called Carpin', and it's all about catching carp on a fly rod. I got the help of my good friend Dave Whitlock, Jerry Darkus, Michael Bennett, Jim Andricks helped us out with this, but we call it an overview of fly rodding for carp. And this DVD is still pertinent today. And like I said, we're just going to go ahead and share it with you all here on YouTube over time here, so stay tuned. But the carp, let me preface this. In my life, what I most love to do, and what I've been doing since the early 80s, is I really consider myself a saltwater fly fisherman. Yes, I fish for trout, I guide for trout here in Ohio, and I do enjoy it. But if you gave me a choice, you better believe I'm going to be either in the Bahamas on Andros Island, I'm going to be in Belize, or these days you'll find me hanging out in New Orleans chasing the giant monster redfish they have down there in the Mississippi River Delta. So saltwater fly fishing is really what I love to do. Bonefish, tarpon, permit, redfish. I just love the salt. And actually, living here in Columbus, Ohio, it's easy for me to jump on a plane. I can be in New Orleans by 10 a.m. and catching redfish by lunchtime. I can be in the Bahamas by noon. So it's not so bad off living in Columbus, Ohio. But the reason why I fell in love with carp fishing so much in the mid-90s, late 90s, was it's exactly like saltwater fly fishing. You need to find a feeding carp, and then you need to make the perfect presentation to that feeding carp. Really, it's just the same as fishing a bonefish flat. Just that it's a heck of a lot cheaper for me to do, and the scenery looks a little bit different. Hell, I can go right down the street from the shop here, and we've got great carp water In fact, I bet you do too. There's carp all over the place. So if you can open up your mind enough, carp fishing is a lot of fun. It's a great challenge and it's very rewarding. Not to mention they're one of the few fish on this list that might take you into your backing and take you for a real ride. And then of course, pike fishing with a fly rod, and really huge business for us is muskie on a fly rod these days. Muskie on a fly rod has become big business, and you're seeing just loads and loads of these guys tying flies that are really pushing the limits. I mean, for example, you have Blaine Chocolate and some of the other guys who are really pushing the boundaries of fly fishing. How about striped bass? We get a good run of stripers and wipers here in Ohio during May and June. That's a lot of fun on a fly rod. Heck, we've got guys that are fishing for saugeye, for walleye, and even catfish with a fly rod. Yes, catfish can be caught on a fly rod. So I think that's one of the great misconceptions is people, they're really surprised that we fish for muskie with a fly rod, or especially for carp with a fly rod. They can't believe it. But I'm telling you, carp are game fish, and if you can open up your minds enough, you have a world of fly fishing that's probably right in your backyard. You don't have to be below snow-capped mountains in Montana to go fly fishing. So as always, if you ever have any questions, feel free to contact us here at the shop. Send me a note down below, send me an email, or give us a call. We're always happy to answer your questions. Thanks for watching as always, and stay tuned. We have a few more episodes left in Getting Started in Fly Fishing.